Hello, I'm MacLachlan. Welcome and thank you for joining me. For those of you who follow my regular videos, you'll know that I typically talk about car culture. I go to car shows and do all that sort of thing. But today's a bit different. Today I want to pay tribute to my late great uncle, James Barrie MacLachlan, who was killed during World War II. This video is going out on Remembrance Day, so I thought it was quite appropriate to come here to central London to the Tower Hill Memorial, to think of him and to tell his story. The Tower Hill Memorial commemorates over 36,000 Commonwealth merchant seafarers and fishermen who lost their lives in both world wars and as such have no known graves. The first memorial opened in 1928, followed by the second in 1955. And in more recent times, there is a separate memorial to those killed during the Falklands conflict. James Barrie MacLachlan served in the Merchant Navy during World War II. He and countless others worked tirelessly to keep the nation supplied, to keep the nation going. The Merchant Navy had a crucial role to play. They carried everything from food, oil, raw materials, and they even carried troops, aircraft, tanks, and other things necessary for major operations, such as D-Day. They travelled together in convoys and were frequently targeted by German U-boats. The Germans knew that if they could disrupt our supply chain, sever that vital link, then we as a nation would be crippled. My great-uncle James was born in 1915 in Stirling, Scotland, and grew up in Glasgow. He was part of a large family. His father was Peter MacLachlan and his mother Rachel Barrie. Now, like many boys living at that time, he would have looked upon the ships coming into the Clyde and dream about having adventures in far-flung places. At the outbreak of World War II, he joined the Merchant Navy. His discharge book number was R98514. He served aboard the SS Cadillac, a steam tanker which was attacked and sunk on the 1st of March 1941. James served as a fireman on board the Cadillac. He was part of what was known as the Black Gang, those men who would work in the bows of the ship, keeping the steam boilers fed. It was dirty and difficult work. He and many of his shipmates were killed. He was aged just 26, a young man who left behind his widow, Laura Isabel MacLachlan, and their children, who were living in Parkston in Dorset. The SS Cadillac was a British steam tanker completed in 1917 at the Palmer's Shipbuilding and Iron Company Limited in Hebburn-on-Tyne. It weighed 12,062 metric tons and was owned by the Anglo-American Oil Company Limited, based in London. The ship had a complement of 42, of which 38 were killed, leaving 4 survivors. It was part of convoy HX109 and carried the cargo of 17,000 tons of aviation spirit. I'd like to read to you an account of what happened to the Cadillac and her crew on that fateful night in 1941. I'm grateful to uboats.net for providing this information. On the 13th of February 1941, the Cadillac left Halifax in station number 91 of convoy HX109. But the tanker was separated from the other ships when the convoy was scattered by a strong gale with heavy snow showers during the night of the 26th and the 27th of February. The next day she met another straggler and the two ships were sighted by U-boat 552 at 10:23 a.m. on the 1st of March. However, the U-boats could not get into a favourable attack position because they were forced to dive twice during the day to evade a Sunderland aircraft patrolling the area. HMS Malcolm was directed to the stragglers by the aircraft and led them to a group of 3 other ships from the scattered convoy. The 5 ships then continued in an ad hoc convoy, proceeding in a line abreast formation with Cadillac as the outermost ship on the port side, escorted by the destroyer and HMS Mallow. At 11:56 p.m. on the 1st of March 1941, the Cadillac was struck on the port side amidships and further aft in the cross bunker by two G7E torpedoes from U-boat 552 while steaming at 9 knots in fine weather about 150 miles north-northeast of Rockall. The tanker vibrated violently, took a list to starboard of 10 to 15 degrees, and the highly flammable cargo immediately caught fire, causing a massive explosion when the number 8 tank blew up on the port side after about 4 minutes and illuminating all ships in the vicinity. With the ship settling by the bow and blazing furiously on the port side, the survivors tried to abandon ship on the starboard side. However, the small emergency lifeboat swamped during the launch as the forward fall was let go too quickly and its 3 occupants were thrown into the sea. The large rafts stored on the aft deck proved to be far too cumbersome and heavy to launch them. 26 survivors managed to abandon ship in the starboard aft lifeboat, but it was surrounded by burning fuel, and most men panicked as they could hardly breathe and see nothing except a wall of flame all around them. Some began calling for help, others were praying, and then most jumped over the side and perished. Only 5 men stayed and took cover in about 1 feet of water at the bottom of the boat, which slowly drifted clear of the flames in the slight swell, and the men frantically began to row away for about a mile with the only 4 oars left until they were completely exhausted. They then attracted the attention of HMS Malcolm by firing a rocket and were picked up at about 1:30 in the morning. The crew of the destroyer had seen a number of men swimming close to the flames, but were unable to help them as they had lost their boats in the gale, and stopping was too dangerous because the destroyer would have been an easy target, being illuminated by the burning tanker. Unseen by the escorts, U-boat 552 had remained on the surface nearby, and the captain allowed his crew to come up to the bridge one at a time to have a look at the sea of flames before the U-boat subsequently left the area. The Cadillac was last seen blazing with a list to starboard and down by the head at 5:30 in the morning on the 2nd of March, and apparently foundered later that day. The master, 31 crew members, 2 gunners and 3 passengers were lost, including my great-uncle James Barrie MacLachlan. 5 crew members survived, but 4 of them were badly burned and were landed at Stornoway in the morning of the 3rd of March to be taken to a hospital as quickly as possible. However, the condition of one man was worse, as he had no clothes on that could protect his skin, and he died of his wounds the following night. The boatswain was brought to Londonderry to make a report, and was then also taken to a hospital for treatment of his burns. Also serving in the Merchant Navy and present that night in the same convoy was my grandfather, John MacLachlan, the younger brother of my great uncle James. My granddad stood helplessly and watched the Cadillac burn. He and his shipmates couldn't come and offer assistance because it would have given away their position to the enemy. They had no choice but to watch the ship burn, to hear those terrified screams. He carried that with him, and after the war he wouldn't talk about it. I can't imagine how that must have been for him, to watch his brother die in such horrific circumstances. Like so many others, James Barrie MacLachlan never got to come home and has no grave but the sea. I'm grateful that today in 2025 I get to stand here in central London, and I get to do so in peace. And it's because of the brave sacrifices of all of those men and women who are commemorated here at Tower Hill. Sometimes I wrestle with choosing the words that sum up this experience, sum up this story I've been telling you. And I think, to be honest with you, this prayer says it all. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory, forever and ever. Amen.